epidemic, it is eating away at the core of strong communities and homes throughout our region. And law enforcement officials and first responders, it's gotten to the point that they're literally arming themselves with another drug that possibly could reverse the effects of an overdose, all in an effort to save lives. Now, I'm talking about the drug Narcan. And this week, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman announced that every cop who patrols the state's transit system, they will carry the life-saving drug. The MTA's 670 police officers who patrol the LIRR and Metro North and Staten Island Railway, they will each get a kit. New Jersey not immune to the crisis, and back in March, Governor Chris Christie, he signed the Good Samaritan drug overdose bill, which allows emergency medical technicians to carry Narcan. Heroin deaths in New York City, they spiked by 84% between the years 2010 and 2012 after 4 years of decline. And the amount of the drug being seized on the streets, it's unbelievable. Just last week, a Bronx man was busted with $20,000 worth of heroin at the Port Authority bus terminal. And earlier this month, after a 13-month-long investigation in Western New York, police brought Operation Crazy Train to a close. They seized $1 million worth of heroin, and they made 32 arrests. Law enforcement officials say that this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. Former DEA Special Agent Robert Strang, he spoke to me back in February about the drug smuggling dilemma and why more teens are at risk of being drawn into the sale or the addiction. It's not an exaggeration, is it, in any way to say that this is a full-blown crisis here and an epidemic?
No, it's not. I mean, not only taking a look at the increase in the number of deaths, but just take a look in the last couple of days. There was a huge seizure right here in New York City. The purity levels estimated to be very high. Same thing in Pennsylvania and other parts around the country. So you're seeing an increase in purity all across our country.
Can you explain some of the math of this? Because all of a sudden, some of us, when we got introduced, even with the Hoffman story, we thought the expenses involved with heroin were much more. It seems that the price has gone down, which has increased the availability to such a wide population.
That's right, Rich. I mean, this is like the perfect storm when you think about it. And what's developed is that, take a look at the numbers. 80% of the first-time users of heroin have been using prescription drugs. You know, these very powerful prescription drugs for pain, as painkillers. So the opiates continue. Many of them were morphine users. But what's happened is the quality has gone up. Most of the heroin that we get now is from Mexico. Years ago, it came from Europe. Remember the French Connection. After that, it came from Asia, where a lot of it was coming in through Canada and from China. But now it's all controlled, and then for a while from Colombia. But now it's all from Mexico. It's very pure. It's coming in very quickly. So you have the same distribution networks set up in this country, but what's happening is because of its purity level, by the time it gets to the street, it may go to 2 or 3, 4 different distribution networks, people making money, organized crime. By the time it gets to the street, it's still very pure. So the user who's used to using a less pure substance gets the heroin and overdoses, and that's the problem. The cost is down, the purity is up, and the problem is huge.
And when you say huge, we gave just a few examples from Vermont here to inner cities to suburbs. This is everywhere. We're even hearing from schools now, from both the high school level, even on the college campuses. It's spread there as well. The idea, I thought, was that heroin was a huge problem a decade or two ago, but it ebbed. Now it's back. Is that the problem that law enforcement is dealing with? Is this all of a sudden has spiked out of nowhere and it's everywhere?
It's true, and you know, you look that we have right now, we have 750,000 regular heroin users in the country, and that number is rising all the time. And this is a drug that's available in the suburbs, in the inner city, as you said, on campuses and schools, and it's very dangerous, and unfortunately, it's out there in a big way. And kids who had usually used prescription drugs, or young people, are now switching to heroin because it's less expensive, and the purer it is, obviously the greater the high, so they can snort it, they can smoke it, or they can inject it. But we need to educate kids through DARE and other programs and get the word out quickly, because if you have a young person today who's experimenting with these kinds of drugs, they could die very easily.
And when we come back, you will hear from a local priest who held funeral masses for 3 young people who couldn't beat the addiction. And we'll also hear from a father who is turning his grief over the loss of his son into his vocation. We'll see and hear his commitment to making sure his son's music is heard throughout the world and that his memory lives on.